Well, the information at this stage, Virginia, is that an Afghan National Army soldier opened fire from a tower at a base in the Charleston area of Uruzgan province. 3 Australian soldiers were wounded and 2 Afghan soldiers were also wounded. These wounds are described as non-life-threatening. The wounded Australians and Afghans were taken to the military hospital at Tarankot. Shortly after the shooting, the rogue Afghan soldier fled the scene in an Afghan National Army vehicle. He took some equipment with him. Afghan and coalition troops then did their best to try and seal off the area, and they're now launching a search operation to try and find him. It's the middle of the night here in Afghanistan, and that country is very rugged, so it will be a difficult operation for them, but they're moving very quickly to try and hunt him down.
Sally, what can you tell us about the area in which this incident took place? You said he was shooting from a tower. What was the physical circumstances of where this took place?
We don't know much more than that at this stage, nor do we know what prompted this attack, whether there was a confrontation or whether this was someone who had insurgent views, who had been what's called a sleeper, who'd been amongst the ranks of the Afghan National Army and had been waiting for an opportunity to stage an attack like this. All of that will come out in the investigation and will take some time. The priority now is the treatment of the wounded and this search operation to try and find this gunman before there are any more injuries.
Now, the pictures we're looking at right now do not relate to the incident that we're talking about this morning, Sally. These are filed pictures of Australians on duty in Afghanistan. But put together, this incident and the recent incident, the shooting and killing of Australian soldiers, would create in the impression in the mind of people watching this morning that there are many, or at least some, Afghan nationals who are not in support of what the Australians are doing there. Is that an unfair impression that might be created?
Well, it's difficult to tell. The Australians are dealing with more than 3,500 Afghan soldiers, the majority of whom have been training and working hard with the Australians. That relationship has been very productive, and together the soldiers from both countries have been able to create what's known as a leapfrog. They've been able to generate security, leave the Afghan soldiers in that area, leapfrog forward, establish another base and increase the security presence in Uruzgan. The context of this, though, of course, is very difficult for that relationship now. It comes only 10 days after a rogue Afghan soldier killed 3 Australian soldiers and wounded 7 others in Kandahar province. And between then and this incident, we've had the Prime Minister visiting Kabul and also Tarankot, and her message very clearly was that Australia's presence will continue and that despite the sorrow and the loss of what had happened 10 days ago, that Australia would continue in a sense of partnership and friendship with the Afghan forces. So this latest incident will make it much more difficult for Australian soldiers in a practical sense to be able to do their job, but it's fair to say that there has been a lot of cooperation, hard work and trust in the past between the two groups.
And Sally Sarah, when we were speaking to the Defence Minister Stephen Smith yesterday on the program, he didn't deny very sound reports that over time, as part of the drawdown of some Australian soldiers out of Afghanistan, that others still would then be moved into even more dangerous areas of Afghanistan up further north than where they are right now. Do you have a sense of whether those Australian soldiers on the ground there would greet that positively or negatively?
It's difficult to tell. The kind of changes that were being floated were for Australian forces for Australian regular forces to move further into the training role, and for the specialist and rapid response combat operations to be placed in the hands of the special forces, but also for this geographic shift. So we saw with Australian troops being hit in Kandahar 10 days ago, there would be members of the public back home that weren't even aware that those operations were going on in that part of the country. Stephen Smith briefed on that in mid-October. So it's difficult to tell. The immediate reaction of the troops obviously is there will be a degree of shock and sadness, anger and mixed feelings about what's happened, but their mission will continue for now.
And Sally Sarah, just finally this morning, how difficult will it be in the kind of country and terrain that we're talking about to try and track down that Afghan national?
Well, as I said, it's dark here, but the coalition forces have equipment that can deal with that. It's very rugged country in Uruzgan in that particular part, so the troops, the Australians, the coalition troops and the Afghans will be doing their best to try and track down this soldier. They're throwing a lot of resources at it, and there's a lot of determination tonight to find him as quickly as possible.